Yeah, just a minute.
I can start, please. I can start, please.
No, Nitin sir, it's still not come.
Okay. A kind request to one and all, please. Sure.
Nitin, are we done? Okay. Do we have to send another link? Same link? Okay. So, yeah.
It is not working. Nitin, it is not working. Nitin sir, the same link is not working, no?
It is ended on 5153.
Yes. It is not working, not yet.
Hello.
We have to resend the link to everybody, is it, Nitin?
Hello.
You're sending a new link?
Pratnesh?
Yes,
Hello,
sir.
Pratnesh?
Hi, yes, sir. Hello. Hello. Hello.
I can hear you. I can hear you if you can hear me.
Oh. Hello.
Hello,
Yeah, hi,
doctor.
Dr. Sarla.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, we are
Yeah,
all
I
stuck up in some technological issue. I hope we get to reconnect in few moments. Please bear with us.
I can hear you. I can hear you if you can hear me.
No.
Yeah, yes.
Give the announcement. Hello.
Hello,
The
doctor.
YouTube link.
Sir, I think the YouTube link, what the participants outside, they cannot see the link. I mean, it has got disconnected due to some reasons. So Nitin is working on it. Probably we might have. Yeah, we are all stuck with another YouTube link. So that will be again sent out. So it will take some time. We can just take a break of 10 minutes, all of you. Thank you so much. We can be back by 10 minutes. I request all of you all to please put your mic on the mute mode. Yes, Nitin, what's the update?
I guess Nitin is posting the link. He is posting the link. Zoom chat, he has posted a YouTube link, ma'am, new link.
Okay.
Just a minute, Nitin, we'll check. Yeah, just a minute, we'll check.
Is this the same link, Nitin? But then, okay. Just speak to Sandeep how we give it to the participants. Yeah.
Meanwhile, you can start the program. Let Sandeep mail the link. Announce like that, the link is coming to you.
Sir.
Okay. Okay, sir.
All on YouTube, you can tell them link is reaching and you can go ahead the program.
Okay, Rakesh sir is here.
I'm putting new link on YouTube.
Yes?
Yeah, I'm here in the back room.
Yeah.
So Sonal, you can go ahead.
Okay, sir. Okay, so we were at the end of Rakesh sir's lecture. So thank you, Dr. Rakesh Kumar. Thank you for your presidential address on contribution of technology towards environmental sustainability. The innovations and research in science and technology are the engines of the 21st century economy. If we care about the health and wealth of our nation and the universe in totality, we all have a long way to go. With these words, I thank Dr. Rakesh Kumar to give his valuable time and be here and guide us through the technology and the research, its importance, etc. Thank you, sir. I request Dr. Thomas to please put your mic on mute mode. Moving ahead, now I welcome Professor Dr. Thanos Bortsalas, the Professor of Energy and Materials in Department of Earth and Environmental Engineering, Columbia University, USA. Dr. Botsalas obtained his BS in electrical engineering from the University of Patras, Greece, his MS in earth resources engineering from Columbia University, and his PhD from Imperial College London in civil and environmental engineering. Dr. Thanos focuses on systems for sustainable development with an emphasis on process engineering, sustainability economics, and public policy. He is the Vice President of Research, Development, and Deployment at Global to Waste to Energy Research and Technology Council, where he directs techno-economic and business model studies for the use of urban and industrial residues for the production of energy fuels and materials. Dr. Thanos is the senior advisor of the World Bank Group on the development of investment criteria for sustainable development projects and the senior advisor to a UN committee for the development of sustainable development standards and a toolkit for public and private partnerships for signatories of the UN Paris Agreement. He was on the technical advisory panel of Singapore's Environmental Protection Agency for guidelines for the beneficial utilization of waste to energy bottom ash. He is also a co-author to the solid waste chapter of the assessment report on climate change and cities ARC 3.2 developed by the Earth Institute of Columbia University and presented at the Conference of Parties 21 in Paris. I welcome Dr. Thanos Botsalas. Sir.
So thank you very much for your kind introduction. I would like to thank you very much also for giving me the opportunity to be with you today and present about waste management in the COVID-19 era. Give me 1 second just to share my screen. So before I start, I would like actually to present say a few words about our organization, which is the Waste to Energy Research and Technology Council, that was founded by the Earth Engineering Center of Columbia University in 2002. And at the end of 2011, we were incorporated as a non-profit organization under the laws of the federal and the New York State. So our scope is to identify the best available technologies for the recovery of energy and materials from the several types of wastes. And also our ultimate scope is to disseminate this information via publications, our multilingual WTRT pages, and periodic meetings at national and international conferences. At the moment, we are active in 15 countries. One of our most active organizations is India. And however, we have been really active in Europe, Asia, and Latin American countries. So the problem is well known, and COVID outbreak created all this huge turbulence in our world. It was actually very well explained by Professor Sawant. I will not go into detail in this. However, I would like to focus on what can really be done and can be done on the utilization of the resource and how can safely dispose of our waste materials. Obviously, we do have the hierarchy of sustainable waste management. This actually started from the European Union sometime in the 90s with a 3R approach, reduce, reuse, recycle, that was expanded at the 4R to include the recovery. However, this term is really broad and general and doesn't include any technologies. That is why from the Earth Engineering Center, some time ago, we developed the hierarchy where we included the several technologies where we can achieve sustainability in terms of waste management. Obviously, the very first tier of sustainability is to reduce our waste materials. Then comes recycling in two forms, either the formal recycling or the informal recycling sector, which is actually the dominant method in the developing and emerging nations. Composting, which comes either as anaerobic composting or aerobic composting. Anaerobic composting is a more sophisticated system that can also recover few materials. However, recycling and composting is ideal only for source separated materials. And all these technologies can be really effective as long as we separate our materials at the source. However, not all of the materials have a value in the market, and not all of the materials can be recovered. That is why we're talking about the post-recycled wastes, which actually what can be recovered with two technologies, either through thermal treatment and recover energy, or dispose it off in the several types of landfills. The necessary ingredients for successful recycling, we need actually three ingredients. The first is the communities, which separate collection of the materials, citizens who are very well aware of the different waste streams and are really keen to separate the materials at source. And as I mentioned earlier, very, very important are the markets that can use or make profit out of all these materials. And why it is really important to separate our materials at the source? Because of the impact of the source separation metals concentration. This graph that was produced by one of our great associates, Mr. Anepu, some time ago, shows the heavy metals on the x-axis, and on the y-axis is the concentration of the heavy metals in milligrams per kilo of wastes. And we do have three scenarios. The blue bar indicates one bin. The materials are just collected in one bin and are mixed. The second bar are partially separated materials, typically actually two bins, one for the dry and the other for the wet materials. However, we do have contamination and advanced source separation techniques, like similar to what we have seen in Europe, where we have several bins, but even so, we have a small contamination of heavy metals.
Whisper.
You can easily see, sorry, as you can easily see, we have actually a significant impact on the reduction of the heavy metals concentration in the municipal solid waste. As well,
connection or use different speaker.
Sorry, Aaron? Okay, sorry for that. And so it's actually we have a significant effect on the separation of the materials at the source with regard to the mixed waste. As you can easily understand, similar effects we will have actually from the COVID. That is why also with few current orders and directives by the European Union and few American associations, is typically actually we should actually avoid recycling for some time to avoid actually the contamination of our materials with the new coronavirus. Dr. Sawan, could you please actually mute your phone? So, and then we do have actually two options, as I mentioned, waste to energy or landfilling. Waste to energy has actually obvious advantages, and I'm talking about only proper and state-of-the-art waste to energy, similar to what we have seen actually in Europe and recently in China. With the thermal treatment of waste, we're heating the materials up to about 1000 Celsius. So this technology is suitable to distract all the pathogens and the hazardous components that are contained in our waste materials. A great advantage is actually the conservation of land. According to our studies, we are saving about 1 square meter for every 10 tons of waste materials. Electricity production, which is over 0.5 megawatts, typically from waste to energy, we are producing about 0.5 megawatt hours per ton of waste materials, where from advanced landfills with methane recovery, at most we can recover about 0.06. Greenhouse gas reduction, roughly speaking, on a range about between 0.5 to 1 ton of CO2 equivalent per ton of waste. And this actually associates with the methane emissions from landfills, and methane is a potent greenhouse gas. And waste to energy allows metals and minerals recovery from the residues. As well as waste to energy is a more aesthetically pleasant technology, and this is actually a few photos that I took some time ago in Chile, in Santiago. This is actually a proper and a sanitary landfill with advanced methane recovery. But even so, we're talking about pollution onto land and not really aesthetically pleasant images. And this also, it's actually another photo I took actually with my friend, Professor Sawant, some time ago in Medellin, Colombia. Again, this is actually considered to be a sanitary landfill with methane recovery, but as you can easily see, it imposes a huge threat to the environment. Whereas on the other hand, waste to energy is located typically in the city centers. This is actually a plant that recently opened in Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark, where they have a ski slope also on top, so people are going there and skiing. or the Spitalau plant in Vienna, which is actually located right next to the Palace of Vienna. And a recent analysis that we did of tabulation of all the European waste-to-energy plants showed that 41 plants in Europe co-combust medical wastes. And on the average, these plants co-combust about 2 per weight percent as compared to the feedstock. For example, the Herstal WT plant in Belgium, which again is located in the city center, recovers about 67 megawatts of thermal energy, combusts 220,000 tons of household waste, and about 6,500 tons of hospital wastes, and a small fraction of wastewater sludge. The Spitalau plant that I showed earlier, which is located right next to the Palace of Vienna, combusts about 250,000 tons per year and co-processes, roughly speaking, 6,000 tons of hospital wastes per year. A list actually can be found at the ISVA report. ISVA stands for the International Solid and Waste Association. So obviously, waste to energy is the most prominent technique to dispose of safely our materials with regard also to our recent outbreak and COVID. Because as I mentioned earlier, waste to energy is a process that uses heat at a temperature of over about 1,000 Celsius. So obviously is a switchable temperature to distract all the pathogens. And also on the level of deployment, what we have seen from very, very successful paradigms of sustainability, like the Europeans, and this actually graphs shows the evolution of sustainable waste management at the European level, starting in 1995 until 2017. We have the several disposition options: landfilling, waste to energy, recycling, and composting. And as you can see, Europeans reduced the landfilling rates from 64% down to 23% by a combined effort of recycling, composting, and waste to energy. So during the same time, waste to energy was almost doubled, recycling was tripled, and composting was actually about 2 times higher. And this is actually a great example on why recycling, composting, and waste to energy go hand in hand in the advancement of sustainability in our modern societies. Recently also we have the concept of circular economy. And about a year ago, Europeans launched actually the strategy on what should be done on to achieve full circularity. And the recent study that was done by CEVEC, the Confederation of Energy from Waste Plants, showed that even with the ambitious targets for 2035 at the European level, where we will have, roughly speaking, 250 million tons of municipal waste and another 295 million tons of other non-hazardous waste components, like the commercial and industrial waste materials, again, the non-hazardous components. Even with advanced recycling, we will actually have to deal, roughly speaking, with about 25 to 30% waste to energy. So we will even show with advanced systems, well-educated citizens, and very ambitious targets. And if we accept also this magical thinking from my view scenario, we will have to deal actually with this residual fraction and to produce electricity. Otherwise, the only option will be landfilling and the use of land. In the case of India, it's actually a great opportunity, and according to a study that was done by our associate, Mr. Anepu, that I mentioned also earlier, and he actually assessed the mega cities of India, Greater Kolkata, Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, and Hyderabad. These cities actually produce in total for about 45,000 tons per day, and obviously we have a low calorific value in India. However, this is not actually an obstacle. And even so, with this type of materials, we can produce up to 743 megawatts of power that can come in 2 forms, either electricity or heat for several purposes, like the industries or district heating for the cities. And this can actually save, roughly speaking, 8.3 million tons of coal per year. So to wrap up, waste to energy, technology that produces energy from waste that cannot be recycled, and it is typically landfilled. Successful examples of the world have proved that recycling goes hand in hand with waste to energy. Very, very important with regard again to COVID-19 outbreak. WT is key to remove hazardous materials out of our circular economy cycles, allows non-recyclables, saves land and greenhouse gases over the only alternative, which is landfilling. And at the end of the day, the terms or cycles in a circular economy need energy that can actually be provided by waste energy. So again, I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity. Feel free, to ask me any questions or drop me a line later on if you want to discuss anything upon this subject. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Thanos Bortselas. Your topic or your talk on waste to energy in the COVID-19 era has definitely inspired a lot. We all are living on this planet as if we had another one to go. That the way we are generating waste in our world, the earth does not belong to us, it is we belonging to the earth. If we all understand this, the importance of the R's, it can be reduce, reuse, recycle, refuse, rethink, and you add number of R's. Only then we can have a sustainable life. We can survive on this planet. With this note, I thank Dr. Athanas Bertsolas a lot to give his valuable time and be present over here for us. Moving forward, I now invite Mr. G.G. Thompson, IAS officer, former Chief Secretary, Kerala, India. Sri G.G. Thompson has an official career spanning 36 years and he has held many important posts both in Government of Kerala as well as Government of India. He was the sub-collector of Alappuzha district, collector of Palakkad, managing director of various PSUs like Kerala Civil Supplies Corporation, Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation, National Cooperative Development Corporation, National Agricultural Marketing Federation, and many others. He was Principal Secretary to many state government departments like Revenue, Investment Promotion, Higher Education, Non-Resident Keralite Affairs, Corporation, Transport, etc. As the first Director of Sports and Youth Affairs, he organized the second National Games in Kerala in 1987. His organizational skills were in full display during the Commonwealth Games 2010 when he handled the critical functional areas. A born charismatic leader, he was a chief organizer of the Global Investor Meet held in Kochi in 2003. I request Mr. G.G. Thompson to please take the stage. We'll be back in a moment. Mr. Thompson, is he here?
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Thompson.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't think my. Can you see me?
No, sir. Can you put on your video, please?
That's what I was trying. I can't.
I guess there is some issue with the video, sir.
Yeah. But I think I can hear you. What shall I do? Shall I go ahead?
Just a moment, I'll just ask our expertise to just call you. Okay, sir? Yes, sir, we can see you now. Yeah, we could see you, but again, I think the video is not visible.
I think it's okay with us.
Yeah, we can see it. We can see it. Yes, thank you.
We can see you, we can hear you.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Nitin, hello?
Yes, sir, we can see you.
Okay.
Yes, we can see and hear you.
We should not
Thank
waste
you.
more time. Good morning, friends. Let me first of all thank Professor Savant for giving me this great opportunity, and greetings to all my fellow panelists and all the viewers. Friends, I'm planning to talk about the various steps that the government needs to take, basically from the government. And as Sonal mentioned in her introduction, I had spent some 3.5 decades in government, both in the state of Kerala as well as in Delhi, in the central government. So I'm just giving you a few areas where the government needs to step in to protect the environment. Now, the shocking impact of this pandemic has made us all think about the fragility of our daily existence, and it has brought about a renewed focus on our essential needs, and in doing so, it has prompted a debate about the interconnectedness and resilience of our food system and supply chains. It has also highlighted the importance of nature and improved access to it for people's both physical and mental health. The first area which I would like to emphasize is a need for a resilient and sustainable food and agricultural policy. You see, very often we go for increased agricultural production without considering the ecological imbalance that it would create. One good example is the farming practice that is being practiced in Punjab. We all know that rice is a staple food for more than half the world's population and is the primary cereal for most states in India. In the 1960s and 70s, India had given special focus to expand the acreage and yield of paddy through the Green Revolution to make the country self-sufficient. But now paddy is being blamed for contributing to a significant worry that the humankind is staring at, that is water scarcity. Now it's high time to move away from paddy and opt for water-consuming crops like oilseeds and pulses. Less water-consuming crops like oilseeds and pulses. Water exploitation is fast turning Punjab into a desert, and it is not at all in the interest of the country, as Punjab is the largest provider of food grain for national food security. Availability of water to farmers is the main hurdle in promoting diversification from water guzzling paddy. Now, friends, another area that I would like to emphasize is the reduction in greenhouse emissions. Professor Savant, in his presidential address, has listed out all the details, so I am not going to any of them. I will only say that the reduction in the use of fossil fuels for travel, which it has generated, it is also limiting industrial activity, which lowers the consumption of oil and coal. And the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions has important implications. Now, you see, the sudden imposition of travel restrictions and self-isolation have forced organizations and individuals to adapt to the new normal. And many of us have been surprised how well and how quickly this has happened. In the past, employers have been reluctant to allow the workers to work from home for a variety of reasons. Some fear that workers may not work as hard or may become distracted, while others harbor concerns that staff will miss important meetings and the quality of their work will suffer from a lack of interaction with colleagues. However, many are reporting that these fears have become groundless and workers have been able to operate very well remotely. Now, because of the internet-based communications and video conferencing have boomed, and it seems inevitable that post-corona, there will be less reliance on travel and that the environment will benefit accordingly. We have also talked about, the previous speaker has also spoken about the waste management, the importance of waste management from waste to energy. And we all know that this is an area which is crying for our attention. And the waste generation in urban India will be 0.7 kilo per person per day in 2025. That is approximately 4 to 6 times higher than in 1999. And more than 90% of our waste in India is believed to be dumped in an unsatisfactory manner. So scientifically managed engineered landfills should replace dumps in India, and adopting maximum recycling with waste to energy in an integrated waste management system would significantly reduce the environmental impact of dumping waste. A strong and independent authority is needed to regulate waste management if solid waste management is to improve in our country. Without precise regulation and enforcement, improvements will never happen. And also, the government of India, the federal government, must incentivize state governments to implement successful waste management projects. And we all talk about this 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. It's fine, but then my point is that they should all begin with the government, because governments need to cut down drastically. The COVID-19 crisis have proved the redundancy in government offices. I will cite an example. Since I'm from the state of Kerala, I will give the example of Kerala itself. For example, the government secretariat in Trivandrum, that is the capital of Kerala, it secretariat houses more than 4,000 officers, and they do a job that can be precisely done by 1/3 of that strength. And with increasing digitalization, this could be further reduced. I know how difficult it is for governments to lay off staff. At least it is a heresy in Kerala. But they can be redeployed in local government institutions after freezing further recruitments for a specified period. A small state like Kerala has got 92 public sector undertakings, 162 autonomous bodies, 25 commissions, and 36 welfare bodies. Most of these are meant for party workers who lost the election, or those who failed to get an assembly ticket, and some are reserved for inconvenient politicians. This is the case in almost every other state in the country. And so flattening the bureaucracy is one of the important areas which the government should step in immediately after this crisis. And next is the concept of volunteering. It is not very prevalent in our state. I remember when I was organizing the Commonwealth Games in Delhi, we wanted some 1,500 volunteers, and we found it so difficult to get young people as volunteers. Everyone was looking for some sort of a job. Nobody was prepared to volunteer. And this concept is not prevalent in the country, and this is something which we need to do, because there is so much of work to be done in waste management and in protecting watersheds, etc. So this is something which needs to be, implanted in the minds of the youth, and this should begin from their school days. And the next point which I want to emphasize is on education. When you further your education, you can help others understand the importance and value of our natural resources. We need to teach children about biodiversity. Biodiversity is a key indicator of the health of an ecosystem. And we know that healthy ecosystems can clean our water, purify our air, maintain our soil, regulate the climate, recycle nutrients, and provide us with food. They provide raw materials and resources for medicines and other purposes. They are at the foundation of all civilization and they sustain our economies. And it is that simple. We could not live without these ecosystem services. And they are what we call our natural capital. And so this is something that needs to be drilled into the minds of our young people right from the school days. And then next point is on conservation of water. I need not talk much about this because this has all been emphasized. The less water you use, the less runoff and wastewater that eventually end up in the ocean. Now, methods for water conservation should be taught again from school level and should be incentivized. No building permit should be granted without plans for water conservation or rainwater harvesting. And Kerala has plentiful rain, but it's a shame that no concerted efforts are in place to conserve water or recycle wastewater. Despite such bountiful rain, all the 44 rivers in Kerala are dying. There is a crying need to conserve water. And then, of course, another point which Professor Savant made was about sustainability. We need to make sustainability a norm for every other activity. And of course, the other point is on a banning of plastics. We often urge our people to buy less plastic and bring a reusable shopping bag. A complete ban on plastics is the need of the hour. But very often you see that ministers, when they declare the policies about banning of plastics, they will perhaps be doing it after taking a sip from a plastic bottle. And then the another area where government should step in is the use of long-lasting light bulbs. Energy efficient light bulbs reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and this should again begin from the seats of power. And then, of course, the next one is about afforestation. We all know that trees provide food and oxygen. They help save energy, clean the air, and help combat climate change. Afforestation is a proclaimed policy of the government, but it always remains on paper. They shamelessly encourage deforestation for human settlements with an eye on the ballot box. This needs to go. And then, of course, the government should not choose non-toxic chemicals in office. This is another area which should be a given priority. And another area which is very simple, which government can easily implement, is to bike more and drive less. There should be dedicated bike lines in every city. If you go to London today, you will find that they have created lanes for bike in almost every other part of the city. They have followed what is prevalent in Amsterdam or in Netherlands. So this is something that we also need to do post-COVID. And of course, the most important one is that we should formulate policies keeping in mind the future generations. The quality of life for the world's children in 2050 depends on the decisions that we take today. The need for change in human development for them to lead happy lives is something that needs to be taken care of. But it is our experience that governments seldom practice what they preach. Now, for example, 2 weeks back, the government of Kerala gave its non-objection certificate to the State Electricity Board to go ahead with a hydroelectric power project called Adirappalli. Ecologists have been campaigning against it, and as it is not ecologically and environmentally feasible. Besides that, the power project would infringe upon the rights of some tribal people. They're called Kadar people, and there will not be enough water in the river system to sustain the project. The implementation of the project will also affect the waterfall and tourism activities in that region. This will affect the well-being of all future citizens, but none of these were considered by the government. And the reason? Because they are going to fight a general election in a year's time. So this is one example of institutional shortcoming. Now we need to, come out with some kind of remedy for this. There has been examples in Hungary, in New Zealand, and in Israel. As the well-being of and rights of our children and grandchildren will be affected by the decisions that we make today, establishing guardians or commissioners for future generations would alleviate democracy's discrimination of the long term through temporal checks and balances. Now, friends, I will not take more time. Let me conclude. It speaks poorly of a society that we needed this deadly virus to bring us to a situation that we could have decided by ourselves. The question is, when the COVID-19 crisis is over, will we return to normal without having learned a thing about our effect on the ecosystem? Let us take this opportunity not to return to the normal. Instead, let us ensure that we take care of our environment and maintain a healthy ecosystem. It is the ecosystem that provides the basis of all civilizations. It is our natural capital. It is that simple. Neither we nor the future generations could live without this natural capital. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, Honorable Gigi Thompson, for your views on the role of governments for combating pollution from different sectors in conjunction with the pandemic scenario. The steps for protection of environment need for the government to act. The importance and involvement of regulatory policies will definitely help each one of us for sustainable development. Thank you once again for joining us from your busy schedule and giving us your valuable time. Thank you once again. Thank you so much, sir. Moving forward, I would now like to introduce to you Dr. Philip Mozart Thomas, Chairman and Global CEO at Delta Group Holdings, Delta Green Environmental Solutions Private Limited, USA. Dr. Thomas has a purpose and passion for public service. His qualities transcend his stewardship and leadership as the Chairman of Board, Global CEO, Ambassador, Distinguished Professor of Practice and International Corporate Lawyer. He has over 35 years of experience in uniquely challenging situations in the global circular economy waste management ecosystem. His primary surgical striking laser focus centers upon implementing net carbon neutrality protocols for mitigating climate change by implementing audacious adaptation solutions for the global circular economy waste management ecosystem. He was selected by the governments of the United States of America, the Caribbean Community, together with the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, and served as a senior organization of American states. He was a postgraduate fellow, political and economic advisor to Guyana's ambassador to the White House and OAS, and representative to the Inter-American Defense Board, licensing to the Defense Board Foundation and Civil Defense Board. He has designed nation-building programs through national development strategies, sustainable national smart green net carbon neutrality environment planning. He has also assessed infrastructure rebuilding programs, policy, including the development of execution of capital investment policy in Africa, Americas, Europe, and Asia. He has held the position of Chairman and CEO of Caribbean and South American National Conference. He has received the USA Congressional Gold Medal for the development of environmental and life science circular economy, sustainability, eco-cycle waste management as source protocols, and solar renewable energy programs. He's been the founder and chairman of Global Airways and Chairman of Board of Guyana National Council of Public Policy. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy, Government, Diplomacy and International Relations, Bern International University. He is also a Doctorate of Jurisprudence, Atlanta, from the Law School of John Marshall. He is having also an MBA and many other degrees. I now welcome Dr. Philip Thomas. Sir. Dr. Thomas? Please? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very audacious introduction. I must say I am very honored to be part of this distinguished panel in the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Socleen, the Society for a Clean Environment. I must say hello to my distinguished panel, and also I must say hello to the listening audience in the webinar community. My focus today is to share with you some adaptation strategies that came about as a result of examining the infrastructure here in India, and how India, I think, would be able to lead not only in the aspects of carbon neutrality, but also lead in the aspects of leading the global mission on climate change. Now, I must say a little bit about Delta Group Holdings. We have, for the last 30 plus years, been working in several different countries around the world, implementing circular economy waste management program. I was very pleased and happy to see the presentation by Dr. Panos, where he actually presented and showed you the various waste to energy facilities around the world, and something that I would touch on in a moment. But over the last decade and a half, Delta has been in India actually studying the waste management infrastructure. We were initially invited by the mayor of Mumbai, some decade or more ago, to have a look at this to help to resolve the problem as it pertains to the waste management here, the scientific waste management that takes place especially here in Maharashtra state. In going through that entire program, we've also had the opportunity and the privilege of actually working with the National Green Tribunal, Supreme Court of India, in examining all of the private interest litigations, going back all the way to Almata Patel, when she first action under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, where she complained about the state of the environment and as it relates to how it affects the health. In doing so, we also, in studying that body, we looked at all of the court responses, this court actions. We've also had an opportunity, because what Delta does, we actually implement United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Clean Development Mechanism, and REDD Plus program in building the circular economy ecosystems. And we also look at the United Nations Cindy Framework Disaster Risk Reduction Program. So we took into account all this body of information, including the work that has been the rules and regulations of the Pollution Control Board of India. We looked at many of the different programs that were developed by the individual states as it pertains to clean development mechanisms, into the pollution control systems there. And we studied each of all of these systems, and we put together. One of the things that we actually discovered is that there should be a correlation between all the information that were developed by all of the different states, and also information that was developed internationally to deal with the issue of this waste management issue, in which we are addressing. COVID-19 has given us also the opportunity to also look forward as to how beneficial the information that we've been able to study and how that information actually would affect processes and development going forward. I must say that I congratulate India in of itself, because India has really done tremendous amount of work. You know, there's one motto that we always stick by. It's to prepare to fail is to fail to prepare. And what we have discovered in our studies, we have discovered how India has prepared very well. And I say that we can envision India going forward in a very sustainable way, in actually to meeting the challenges ahead that are going to come ahead within this entire post-COVID-19 pandemic area as it pertains to the waste management ecosystem. In examining some of the work that I have mentioned, for example, some of the work from the public interest litigations, the Supreme Court in of itself had a commission that specifically studied the entire problem in India. And there were two things that we gathered from that report. And the two things were the public and private participation, and also the need for an integrated systems of technologies to resolve the problem. I thought that that was very insightful by that commission. It's a commission that was made up of a number of national and international persons, and I do agree. We do agree with this commission report and the need for community and private participation. What we have discovered is that in our countrywide report, where we study the entire infrastructure, whether it's the political, the economic, the social, the environment, the monetary situation, the way government operates, the way the different state governments operate, the ways the different ULBs operate, we discovered that in spite of all of the regulations, in spite of all of the court orders that have been implemented, many of the ULBs try their level best to implement and resolve the problem. But as the commission has pointed out, there is need for the community, the people themselves of India, to be very resilient and to sort of make a very valid contribution. We've also discovered that there are a wide number of participants in the private sector in India that has been doing maximum amount of work in terms of contribution towards helping to set India on a path of becoming carbon neutral, especially within the waste management infrastructure. We had an opportunity whereby for about 2.5 years or so, we implemented an R&D program where it's as Dr. Tanos had pointed out, it's very important that the problem cannot be resolved unless you have to tackle the problem at source. So we did an experiment, an R&D program, whereby with about 50 to 100 societies within the Mumbai area, and to implement a program of zero waste at source. And I think that this has been a very successful program that has been adapted by the municipalities also locally. The Pune municipality, the Kerala and the Hilli and Dumbal municipality has also asked us to develop a similar type of program for that community there also. But I think that you cannot solve this waste management ecosystem problem unless you deal with the source problem. One of the things that we have reported back after we have done and worked with NGT in our report is that one of the solutions to the resolving the problem is that we recommended the elimination of all landfills. You can recognize that the citizens, starting with Almata Patel, reported the effects of this unscientific dumping on the landfills. And we also look and see the effects of that, how it has interdicted the entire water system throughout the country, wherever you go. We did one pre-feasibility study, especially in the village of Fasungi, and where we observed that in that entire community, the entire water system there is interdicted because of the unscientific waste management there in the city of Fasungi. And so we have, in our analysis, decided that we can no longer, and we must no longer follow the traditional way of how waste management must be done. Also, if you're going to propose adaptation solutions, they must be so comprehensive to the extent that the society, the people, through a public education program and community education program, they must be excited to be involved in this in the efforts to help to resolve the problem. You find that there are many individuals in the communities. They have this this NIBI approach or attitude, not in my backyard approach. To help to resolve some of the problem, we shared and took several members of the community internationally so that they can see how waste management is done. And so that they can understand that they can also achieve, those type of standards, especially in Europe, that the Europeans actually practice in terms of waste management. One of the other things that we have done, we have looked specifically, you just can't say that we are going to recommend the elimination of the landfills. We actually looked at the systems that are in place. And what was discovered is that there has been maximum efforts and attempt to sort of eliminate or to get rid of or to take a new approach to the way that waste is being disposed of. We took several metric tons of waste and we distributed globally to various labs because we wanted to understand specifically what seems to be the problem. Because many of our technology partners have been in India, and the system seems that what is working in Europe or in North America seems to not work for waste management. For example, waste to energy plants in of themselves, they seems not to work. And so we took a very close look at the fraction of the waste, and we have distributed. And why we did that? It's because we discovered that because of the climatic conditions here in India, the monsoon, post-monsoon or so, and even when you go on a landfill site itself, because of the topography of the landfill, it is so difficult. The waste fractions, the moisture content, or we refer to it as the calorific value, is so different. So, for example, there was this plant in Gazipur, which we took a good look at, and talking to many of the local experts, you find that the protocols that were implemented in that regard were protocols that caused these systems to fail tremendously. And in studying the waste, we recognized that a specific system, as the court order had said, an integrated system, has to be developed in order to help to resolve the problem. So we took it upon ourselves and we reached out to 34 or so of our technology partners, and specifically to look at, because you have to recognize that waste has been unscientifically disposed of some of these landfills for almost 90 plus years that the waste is sitting there. And you cannot just, and then you have to take into account the daily collection also that comes into play, that impacts. So what we discovered is a huge problem that exists, and you have to get a very huge solution to resolve the problem. So we got together with some of the world's renowned, whether it was NASA, whether it's the Army Corps of Engineers, whether it's Babcock Wilcox Malone, and many of the capable stevedores, many of those technology providers that actually have built systems over the years. What was also very good for us is that we were able to get some very good counseling and tutelage from Dr. Rakesh Kumar from MIRI in terms of his knowledge base as to what would work best as he has seen it best. And so taking the information from him, taking the information from all of the other global technology providers, we were able to come up with specific technology protocol that is befitting to help to resolve the problem with regards to cleaning up landfills, which also serves to address what the Supreme Court has asked that be done, an integrated system of technology. The other thing that we have, that we will be implementing or we are looking at, is that when we compare the way these fabulous waste-to-energy plants, as Dr. Tarnos showed you what is in Copenhagen and one of those very beautiful plants that have been set up. But we have to look at the issue of sustainability. You would find that in Europe, many of these plants that they perform very well. The systems at the zero waste at source programs very well organized in terms of recycling at source. People take pride in that protocol, especially in the Scandinavian countries. But you find that during the summer months, the recycling efforts are so well organized that, and also because they have come into a status or a position right now, these plants do not run during the summer months. They're closed. So all of the waste is being properly collected, being well sorted, and they sit there. And so in the winter months, then these plants start up back again to provide for district heat and to do all of the processing of the waste, etc. So looking now at India, what would be best and what would be the best adaptation solution for India? Okay, fine, you get together, you bring technology providers together, because just not one technology would work. You know, you cannot just go and say because this technology or this systems or these individuals, they have developed these plants, 300, 400 plants and stuff, that it would work for India waste. No, that's not going to be the case here to help India because of the uniqueness of the India's waste. So you bring all these people together. But you also take into account the issue of sustainability. So one of the adaptation solutions that we have proposed and we are going to implement is to also, and if you're pushing India to become carbon neutral, because you find that there are so many individuals that have done so much work in helping the situation. India has this, what is called the NSS, and I took the Honorable G.G. Thompson was speaking about there's this need for participation, volunteerism. India has this NSS service. We have been the benefit of doing maximum lack of tree plantation as a result of the university, the Mumbai University system, the students from there planting lakhs of trees as part of that entire REDD plus program in terms of this United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the CDM and the REDD plus program. So they are very much NGOs, there are various organizations that are so involved, even the big corporates. You know, one of those organizations that with the climate change initiative that we have engaged with, and you know, some of the, whether it's Tata, whether it's Mahindra, whether it's Goodrich, they are all doing some fabulous work. Indian Oil Company, they have done tremendous work in mapping their carbon footprint. So all these things are there in place where, you know, India has prepared itself to move into this new dispensation of achieving carbon neutrality in terms of leading in climate change. But we also have to build systems to what is called to remediate and to clear up the existing ills that are causing problems in the society. So what we have done, instead of just saying, we no longer speak about building a waste to energy plant, because it would not work. And then when we look, it would be on the outside. You have to build waste management systems. And so we're proposing to build what is called these international ecocycle carbon neutrality park systems, which will comprise of both the CDM protocols and the REDD plus protocols, where you will have urban forestry together with the systems of technologies. And we feel that this is the right thing to do for India, given all of what India has been preparing for. And we find that this would be the appropriate adaptation protocol when it comes to developing what is called a circular economy waste management ecosystem for India in of itself. I think also what is very important is also that we need to find systems and ways of how we can educate individuals. One of the most difficult things that we discover is the changing, how do you change the mindsets of the individuals to adapt? What we have discovered in our studies, as was pointed out by the Honorable G.G. Thompson, there is a certain mindset within the municipalities themselves. They're very lethargic in terms of looking at new ways of how to change the mindset, how to do things, you know. So we have to embark on a very rigorous, I recommend that we embark on a very rigorous program to sort of try to educate even the municipalities themselves, you know, to let them understand that there must be a different approach. It's understandable, yes, that these engineers that works for the government, works for the municipalities, they went into school, they learned different systems, they learned different theories, they learned different approaches. But as we evolve, they have to sort of evolve and change with the times and to be able to adapt, to be able to sort of look at a situation within the context of how they contribution that they will make would help to sort of develop and to take the society into a different sphere of development. So I recommend, in closing, I would recommend that for an adaptation solution and plan, one is that we need to actually to speak to the society, speak to the people, individuals. We need to educate them a little bit more. We need to bring them more into the fold to participate. The government, the municipalities themselves, they're not able by themselves. They're doing their level best based on what they have learned, what they know. But without the community participating in this entire initiative, we will find that COVID-19 has put us into a straitjacket at this moment in time, put us into a resettlement posture. The efforts that we are embarking on, you know, that India has made a very, their intended national determinative contribution is to reduce carbon emissions by 30 to 35% from the 2005 levels by 2030. The initiative in terms of when it comes to the circular economy waste management system, 41% of that 30 to 35% is responsible for carbon emissions. So the program in this adaptation program that we're doing, it is to target that 41% of that 30 to 35%. So hence, you have to build these carbon sinks or carbon parks, whereby, and you have to have systems in there where you will have a zero waste protocol and a zero carbon emission protocol that complies with what you're teaching with the societies and the residents and the systems at home. I hope that what I've mentioned to you, what I've shared with you in terms of our research, I hope that it could actually has served some benefit. And if there are any further questions that anyone has, I'd be delighted to address that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Philip Thomas. We'll be taking up the questions in the question and answer round. Sir, your years of passion for public service, your depth of understanding of interfaces between different countries related to environmental issues are all an inspiration for all of us. Thank you for being with us today and inspiring mindsets for environmental perspective thought processes. Thank you once again. Thank you, sir. We now move forward. Now I would like to invite Mr. Ajoy Chatterjee, who is a consultant INSAS auditor, International Maritime Organization based in London, UK, from India. Mr. Ajay Chatterjee is a marine engineer having served the Government of India in the DG Shipping, Mumbai and allied offices for 25 years since 1983 and over 6 years as Chief Surveyor cum Additional Director General Shipping till December 31st, 2008. He was the head of statutory surveys and certification of merchant ships and for implementation and enforcement of international regulations for safety of ships, crew, and for prevention of marine environmental pollution from ships, and was also an ex officio chief examiner for examination and certification of marine engineers in the Merchant Navy. From January 2010, he was principal and head of the Great Eastern Institute of Maritime Studies, Lonavala, till December 2018. Concurrently, he has been retained as the expert consultant and lead IMSAS auditor at International Maritime Organization, London. Presently, he is the academic director, Marine Engineering of ADU Academy, India, engaged in design and delivery of e-learning program on maritime studies in India and overseas. We welcome you, Mr. Ajoy Chatterjee.
Thank you Zuma, for a very good introduction. First of all,
Sir, can you please, sir, your voice is not very clear. Can you please take a mic, sir, to your mouth, please?
Joe, you're on mute. Okay, good. You can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So, again, just to say a very good afternoon to all panelists and participants from far and near who have come to this wonderful program organized by Socleen, and I'm especially thankful to Dr. Thomas and Dr. Salman giving me an opportunity at the International Forum for speaking. I will be speaking something to do with marine, the effect of pollution from the marine side, that is particularly ship-generated pollution, and how this is, how when it is regulated, and like whole country or member country of IMO, as well as what are the effects, and particularly now with the COVID situation, how do we take it forward? So I would like to first talk about international shipping a little bit. That's my background. Then I will go into the effect of pollution.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Can you please lean more towards the mic, please?
Okay. Can you hear now?
Yes, sir, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think I have to put it. Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I would like to say, international shipping industry is responsible for, carriage of more than 80% of the world's cargo, goods of all kinds around the world. So you cannot imagine a modern commerce, you cannot imagine a modern world without ships and shipping. It is the blood, it is actually, shipping is the blood for our economy. Without shipping, international trade, intercontinental trade, bulk transport of crude oil, raw materials, and import-export, affordable food and manufactured goods would simply not be possible. Without unhindered movement of ships, it is said that half the world would be without heat and light, and another half would starve, which is saying it in a way which is actually true. So, shipping moves the world's food, energy, raw materials, as well as manufactured goods and components. I am saying this because the effect of COVID, how it has hindered a lot of aspects, that's what I'm going to conclude with. So it is vital to maintain, as my previous distinguished speakers have already said, sustainable development and prosperity. How do we continue with COVID? While this COVID has really disrupted not a normal activity as we thought normal, but it has also opened a huge idea, a set of ideas, at least I can say in the maritime sector, just to overcome the problems, man's ingenuity is unfathomable. And I would say this has been although we are all in the same boat, but this has definitely opened a lot of opportunities for anyone, particularly in the maritime sector. At any time, there are more than 50,000 ships all over the oceans in the world, trading internationally, transporting every kind of cargo. It is said that more than 30% of the energy movement of the world is around the Indian Ocean, and that is why politically almost all Indian Ocean is now in the limelight. Everybody is talking about it. From the political point, 30% of the world energy is over the Indian Ocean. The world's fleet is registered with 150 nations and manned seafarers of virtually every nationality. And now, why shipping? What is the problem of pollution prevention? Why do we talk about it? I think maritime sector is one of the most regulated sector in the travel industry, besides aircraft, of course. But aircraft, you cannot compare shipping with aircraft in the sense aircraft is much faster, but tons per mile, it is much lower than shipping. The amount of tons of material transshipped by shipping is unfathomable compared to any form of transport, and it is seen that it is 6 times cheaper than any other, just a thumb rule, 6 times cheaper and extremely environmentally friendly. And that is the reason why the government of India is going very fast in trying to make river transport very popular in the country. We have 14,000 kilometers of riverways and 7,000 kilometers of coastline. So we are abundant navigable waters in which to ply ships, and therefore for sustainability and environmental protection, I think shipping, whether it's in the international sector or in our inland sector, is the top of the day. And how to move those ships is another question. Well, I said that shipping is very much regulated. First of all, I'm not talking about SOLAS. SOLAS means the safety of life at sea, which has a whole gamut of rules and regulations to ensure safety of the ships, safety of the crew, safety of the ship operations. What I'll talk here about is the other aspect, the other pillar of International Maritime Organization is called the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, written in 1973, and it has been amended several times. And what we call it now the Ruparel Convention. The Ruparel Convention, there are now 6 annexes. The first annex is about oil pollution, second, chemicals and noxious substances, third, from sewage, fourth, from packaged goods, that could be also dangerous goods in package form, and the fifth is waste. The waste and garbage dumped at sea will actually be as harmful as oil and chemicals. Plastics in particular can take years to degrade, and fish and other marine life can easily confuse plastics for food, as well as do great harm to the marine life and threatening biodiversity. Dangerous toxins can enter the food chain and ultimately being consumed by humans. So, what has IMO done about it? First of all, regarding these, all ships are today equipped with various machinery and equipment which take care of to prevent pollution. That means the sewage that is generated on a ship, there are sewage, treatment systems on the ship, so that no dirty water or even foul water is allowed to get out of the ship. And particularly so on large cruise liners, that you can have passengers and about 1,000 crew members, or even more in some large cruise liners. But every ship has a sewage treatment plant to take care of sewage. Then there is what we call a special treatment system for the dirty oil that is always generated because of the engine waste oil, and that is also treated on board a ship, so that nothing, not even 0.05% to 0.01% of the oil content is in the water that is discharged. Even large tankers, when they are doing the tank cleaning, water that is discharged, it is regulated. You can only discharge that much water, and the amount of effluents that can go out of the water is also regulated and limited, and there are equipment to ensure that. So that takes care of oil. And similarly, for chemicals, gases, bulk transport, as well as what we are talking about now in the present last decade or so, is pollution due to emission of gases from the engine exhaust. That means sulfur oxides, nitrous oxides, particulate matter, which is a big concern, particularly in the northern latitudes. Therefore, now as of January 2001, there has been a limit using a very type of fuel which has not more than 0.5% sulfur, so that the sulfur oxides are not generated to the extent that can be harmful. And it is coming to force from 30th of March this year. Those ships which do not burn that special type of low sulfur fuel will be allowed to continue with the the heavy grade of fuel, but they must have alternate equipment, as we call scrubbers. And the scrubbers again are clean so that the effluent of the discharge from the scrubbers do not get into the sea. So you can see to what extent regulations are in place. Similarly, you have the other aspect is this is ship generated waste. The 6 annexes look after the ship generated waste. But there is another aspect of pollution which is also a concern of ours, and which has now seen the light of the day. It is called ballast water management. Now, what is ballast water? Ballast water, many of you will know, is taken on board a ship for stability and can contain thousands of aquatic or marine microbes, plants, and animals, which are then carried across the globe from within the ship. That means that the ship discharges its cargo to stabilize it and make a voyage. It has to take on what a thumb rule is about for every 100,000 tons of cargo carrying capacity, it will have about 30,000 tons of ballast water capacity. That means if it discharges 100,000 tons of oil in a port, let's say Mumbai, which has come from the Gulf, it will have to take in around 30,000 tons of ballast water from the port in Mumbai, or wherever the port of discharge is. Now, when it again goes, it goes back to the loading. The ship go one day empty, a tanker. When it goes back to the loading port, it has to, before it starts, as it starts loading, it has to discharge that ballast water, which it has picked up from Mumbai. So it is discharging the ballast in another ecosystem, and this is where the problem arises. It creates invasion of the aquatic species in a different ecosystem, and it has been done. Scientists and marine biologists have found out that it is potentially very dangerous, and it has devastating consequences for the local ecosystem and the fisheries. So ballast water is also a separate convention, standalone convention, which is also takes care of this. And now there are treatment system on board fitted, or otherwise a chemical treatment system, which again has very stringent standards, so that it doesn't be pollutant, because you have to finally discharge the effluents. So it is again regulated. The other aspects to consider: ships, have to be, when you travel in water, there is a chance of it rusting. The outside hull of the ship is exposed to seawater, which is saline. And even in fresh water, it will rust. And at the same time, when they travel through water, it consumes less fuel when the hulls are clean. Hull means the bottom of the ship, which is in the water. And they must be clean, they must be smooth, and free from all microorganisms, and also barnacles, algae, and worms which adhere to the ship. So the scientists call them free riders. They again transmit, go from one ecosystem to other. Not only there's a transfer of aquatic species, invasive aquatic species, but also it creates, slows down the speed of the ship, as well as because the ships have to burn more fuel, and that again is a cause of air pollution. So what was done for a long time was using special paints. Now these paints contain what we call TBT, tributylene. But TBT has been found to be extremely hazardous to marine life, and it is therefore now banned. We cannot use anti-fouling paints like TBT. At the same time, we got to protect the hull. So it's a big challenge for engineers, and sometimes costly alternate paints are used. But nevertheless, TBT is another issue where, hull fouling is another issue. So these are the aspects of preventing pollution from ship-generated waste. But mind you, to see that these things work properly, you need equipment and you need machinery items fitted on board, which should be in working condition. And there is the question of maintaining these systems, because the ships, as I told you in the beginning, are highly regulated. And if they are regulated, that means they have, occasionally they are inspected and surveyed at periodic intervals. We call it surveying of ships, inspection of ships, and it's very, very stringent. And based on a successful inspection and survey, the ship is issued with a statutory document, or a statutory certificate approved by the flag state of that ship. And there are recognized organizations who do this work. The problem is, in COVID situation, this has been faced. How do you inspect a ship without going on the vessel? So I am very happy to tell you, there has been this remote inspection and testing facilities. This is nothing new. It has been there for quite some time, about 10, 20 years. But right now, this has suddenly, the COVID has opened a huge vista that, my God, we can do this without a person actually going there. And all that is required, it's not very expensive to have that. It's a digital service for conducting such inspection in remote, ensuring an equivalent reliability without burden of time, money, resources, or even without a person going on the ship. It's all done by remotely. So right from the inspection of the ship's bottom underwater to the machinery items and operational items, everything can be done on remote, and it's catching up very fast. Already I have information that during the COVID situation, this aspect has been launched, and I feel, this is my personal belief, that we have learned a lesson from COVID, and this is going to go on, because for a ship owner, there's nothing like if there is something like these inspections and surveys are done remotely. It saves a lot of time, money, and particularly for a ship, turnaround time is very, very important. Anytime, the longer the ship spends time in port, is actually loss of revenue. And therefore, that is possible. Already, document inspection, certificate inspection for statutory standards are already being done by remote inspecting agencies and by video streaming. And all you need is an app to be installed for the ship and the shipping company, and this can be launched very easily. So what I am looking at is, from now onwards, COVID-19, even after COVID is over, I think this is going to stay. This is one area I can see that post-COVID, the inspections of ships will very much be done on a remote basis. The other aspect, gentlemen, I would like to talk about, while we say about remote inspection, IMO has been seized with the idea of the maritime automatic surface ships. That is, we call it MAS. MAS is now well underway within the IMO, and to determine how existing IMO regulations can be leveraged to ensure that autonomous ships are safe, secure, and environmentally sound. Well, you might say that if we can launch spaceships into the atmosphere and control it remotely, why not ships? Sure, it can. The only thing is, a ship is a huge piece of equipment. It's like a hotel or an industry moving in the water, and there are many aspects of it. And many times there is intervention required to set things right if it goes wrong. But this has been very quickly overcome by technology. So probably in another 10 years' time, we will have already on trial. And I think a rough estimate would be another 10 years' time, we will have several autonomous ships. But that doesn't mean that seafaring technology will be lost, because to run autonomous ships also, you need seafarers with a seagoing experience to be able to run it remotely. So these are the things what I'm seeing post-COVID as of now, and how COVID has taken on, I mean, because of COVID, there has been a leapfrog jump of technology to operate and run ships satisfactorily, efficiently, and keeping all the regulations, implementing all the necessary regulation and safety and security of ship. The other aspects post-COVID, which I think my previous panelists will also agree, we are talking of waste management. India is the largest ship recycling country in the world. As one of the speakers mentioned about the 3 R's, there's nothing like 3. I mean, there is absolutely a perfect example is the shipping industry, because it ensures, the ship recycling ensures that after reaching the end life, operation life, the ship should not pose any unnecessary risk to human health and safety of the environment. Because each and every component of ship is reused or resold for some other use. The steel is very, very profitably used. Those who are familiar with Alang is the largest ship recycling yard in the world. There are several ships at a time being recycled. Now the question happens, what happens after COVID? Because this is a very, I mean, it's very difficult to think of social distancing in a ship recycling yard, because the workers have to get into very congested areas inside the ship's hull and remove equipment, and it's very difficult that you will have everything sanitized to be able to work. So, I mean, to be very realistic, I don't think the effects of COVID is going to go away very soon. And I hope not. I hope things get normal the earliest. But the point is, we have to plan to see that even if there are some issues about maintaining social distancing, sanitizing, ship recycling industry is one aspect where we have to think of ways and means how to continue with the industry. Because if you don't have ship recycling, you can't have a heavy shipping industry. Because ships have an end of life. And end of life today, the rules are so strong. And even before the ship comes for recycling, it must have what we call IHM. IHM is an inventory of hazardous material. A ship has to carry that. And therefore, and then it must have a plan for ship recycling. And the ship recycling yard should have a ship recycling facility management plan, which has to be approved. So as you can see, although it is not ship generated, it is in the, and ships are nowadays built with a minimum of hazardous material in it. And even if it is there, even a slight amount, like for example, polycarbonates, the electronic components, the motherboards and all that. And that's why an inventory has to be maintained throughout the life of the ship. Anytime any repairs are taking place, it has to be written down, what item, how much, and where it was replaced. So that when it goes for recycling, the recycling company knows exactly where the hazardous material are and what to do about it, and they can plan the recycling of the ship. And again, we come back to this COVID situation. All this is a huge problem if you do not plan how you're going to handle ship recycling as well and any other aspect of shipping operation. Even end of the life aspect of the ship, we have to keep in mind this question of the effect of COVID-19. Now, India is a signatory to the Basel Convention. Basel Convention deals with the transboundary movement of hazardous waste disposal control. But of course, India has not yet signed the ban treaty, the Basel ban treaty. But end of this year, the European Union is going to come out with, is going to ratify SRR, that is the ship recycling rules. And then all ships in Europe will not be able to visit Europe unless they comply with the ship recycling rules. But as far as India is concerned, we are not signatory to EU SRR, but at the same time, our IHM, there is some difference between the Hong Kong Convention, which is IMO Convention on Ship Recycling, and the European rules. So it's mainly on the IHM, that is the Inventory of Hazardous Material. So we have to take that into care, and so that we can still, our Indian flag ships or ships from other than European countries can visit European ports. The Fourth aspect, the fifth aspect is the London Dumping Convention. Now, this one is a dumping of waste and other matters. These are not generated, they are not from the ship, but they are from landfills or from mines. And the convention regime also contributes to climate change in a way that the dress material adopts a precautionary approach, prohibiting the discharge of waste at sea except for few or permitted waste such as dress material. It contributes to climate change mitigation by regulating for carbon capture and sequestration in subsea geological formations and predicting and providing regulations and guidance on how to assess proposals for ocean fertilization and other marine geoengineering activities that have that are in force. So these are the few items which I thought I should discuss here. Given the paucity of time, I'm not showing any slides. I'm talking, but I'll be very glad to take questions. But I will not complete my presentation unless I talk about the other very important aspect of shipping, that is the effect of pandemic towards relief of seafarers, the crew change problem. Now, why I say crew change problem? Because at any time, there are estimated more than 1.6 million seafarers sailing on ships internationally, about 60,000 ships worldwide, and of these, they will require to travel to and from ships. Anytime, say, 50% will be joining a ship and another 50% leaving a ship. Because ships, the crew work on contract basis, everything from 4 to 9 months at a time, and they are away from their homes, away from the country, away from the dear one that they need to get home. And there's also a question of fatigue. So they have, because it is a 24/7 job on a ship for any seafarer, whatever rank he may be. And therefore, now in this pandemic, this has very badly affected. I thought 40,000 Indian seafarers are still languishing on ships. They finish their contract period and they have nowhere to go because ships are not allowed to enter port. And even if they enter port, if you have to sign off, you're put on a 14-day quarantine, both ways. When you get off the ship, again, when you come back to your own country, 14 days either side, you're put on quarantine. And here, where the government has done a lot, the Director General of Shipping has issued standard operating procedures of how to take off a person from a ship in these COVID times, what are the standard procedures to be followed, and how he has to work. Nevertheless, because India is a big country and there are so many agencies, government agencies, who are, I'm afraid I have to say this, but it is not absolutely streamlined. So you go in one port, he says, no, you need not be quarantined for the port. You have to be quarantined for port seafarer is running from pillar to post. So all these things have to be streamlined so that the seafarer is not necessarily having, if he has to come on a 2 months leave and he spends 14 plus 28 days in quarantine, then imagine his plight, his mental and emotional situation. So concerted efforts and measures to address the key manpower issues is to do with how to handle him. And this, as I said, this is not only COVID time, it's going to go on for quite some time because countries will still be suspicious about whether you are carrying the virus with you or not. See, on a ship, if you are on a ship, it is absolutely, very high standards are maintained for sanitizing, and although you don't have doctors on a ship, on a general cargo ship, you don't have any physician on a ship, but there are enough medicines for and other PPE for maintaining your safety. At the same time, what happens is when ships come to port, many people visit the ship. They are customs agents, immigration officials, stevedores, and so many others who come and go. And anybody can bring, he may be asymptomatic, he may carry the virus with him, and the poor seafarer is infected and doesn't know till he goes to another port. 14 days later, when he has to sign off, they find that he is also having some virus. So, willingly, the seafarer gets infected. It's not that it is ship generated, not at all. It is due to the virus coming from a shore. And therefore, we must have very strict standards of those aircrafts. And already, I can see from there several videos in the news what the airline industry is doing. And nevertheless, they are air crew only make a price of maximum 2 to 3 hours, anything for 2 to 8 hours maximum, and then they sign off. They leave the aircraft and they go home. Not so for seafarers. They remain on board till their contract is over, maybe 4 to 8 or 9 months later. And therefore, they have to keep healthy. And when they sign off, they should be, already in IMO, the International Maritime Organization, and UNCTAD, that is United Nations Commission for Trade and Development, have issued a joint statement. Seafarers are to be treated as key workers in every country, so that we get the same benefit as other key workers are getting, like doctors and nurses. Because you cannot think of modern shipping, or for that matter, even ancient shipping, you cannot think of shipping without shippers, seafarers. Even automated ships are far away, but even then you will need seafarers. So if there are no seafarers, you cannot have shipping. And you need to take care, while you look at other aspects, you need to have pragmatic approaches to be taken to grant exemptions and waivers where necessary, and appropriate and efforts to be made to facilitate use of electronic solution of ship-shore administrative and commercial interactions. Then there could be effective sharing of information and other COVID-related reporting requirements of ships, and providing adequate equipment and resources to customs and border control stations in port. And in longer term, some measures to confront COVID-19 may offer important co-benefits. For example, instance of encouraging further investment in digitalization and advancing efforts to improve the energy efficiency of ships and reduce greenhouse gas emissions from ships. And changes in the SOPs or existing SOPs to make sure that the seafarers are not affected or not inconvenienced. So while shipping is making great strides for green shipping, for emission, hazardous toxic substances from ships, for pollution prevention, and is highly regulated, but at the same time, we have got new thinking in place. How do we still keep regulating in the same level post-COVID? And with that, I would like to end my brief presentation, and I once again thank the organization and the patiently listening and patiently hearing of my short speech, and I'm willing to take on any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ajoy Chatterjee. The importance of environmental sustainability works in harmony when both land and water are considered. Sir, your vast experience in the field of marine pollution, causes and effects, with first-hand observations in regulatory and control implementation, is surely making us all think to have a 360-degree view of the causes and effects of pollution in general, and to come up with solutions which are technologically sound and feasible both economically and environmentally. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us at Socleen today and share your experienced views. Thank you once again. We now move on to the panel discussion. Dr. A.D. Sawant will be the moderator for this discussion, and I request the panelists to be on board, please. Dr. Rakesh Kumar, Dr. Philip Thomas, Dr. Botsalas, and Mr. Ajoy Chatterjee.
So just find out how many are available.
Yes, sir. Everyone is available. Only Mr. Gigi Thompson is not here, I guess.
Gigi must have gone. He had
Yes.
to go for a meeting.
Yes,
So we
all
have
yes, sir.
all others are there.
Yes.
So thank you all. Very nice lectures and presentations. And we have. Let me know, Sonal, how much time we have with us.
So we have another 15-20 minutes to go.
For a panel discussion, we'll have
Panel discussion, we can wind up in 10 to 15 minutes, sir, and then question answers. We have few questions.
Okay, so the great resource persons will have 10 to 12 minutes for the panel discussion, and as I see that the pandemic is not under control, I was just taking the count yesterday. 1,45,000 new cases have been added in last 24 hours. So the world is stunned. We all are experts. In the country, India also is at a great risk for this pandemic, and governments are, I believe, highly confused. But nevertheless, the control and things will happen. But then, as we look into the environmental issues and the management and excellent lectures each one of you have given, each area is very important. But I would ask Dr. Rakesh Kumar that how do you look CSR laboratories, Miri, head of the environment for this country, are you going to planning? There shall there be new norm standards set up for citizens, cities, urban development, planning, transport, particularly are expert becoming into that, thinking many avenues of traffic control and pollutions and for industries. So please tell us that where do you stand? We are all stand that what are going to be new norms for all of us?
Actually, it's very difficult time, and it's really difficult to even answer all of the questions that you raised. But few things have been initiated. For example, Central Road Research Institute, which is one of the CSR institute, has come out with transportation guidelines. So if people have to get transported in metro or in a bus or trucks and all that, and material has to move in trucks, so what kind of norms should be followed? And a guideline has been presented to Dr. Harshvardhan. So they will notify it as we go ahead, and some of these guidelines are being used. The other one, which is regarding social distancing and how do we safeguard ourselves, I think we have to depend on ICMR because they know things better, how things are moving. I just want to share with you what is CSR doing in this current times. There are 5 verticals in which CSR institutions are working, and the first one is relating to diagnostic and testing. So CSIR is in the process of already CSR 5 labs are testing already using RT-PCR methods, and there is an institution called IGIB which has developed this paper-based diagnostic technique by which you can test it at a very low cost, and within half an hour your results are out. So in another 2 weeks time, probably it will become operational, and that will be very helpful to the society. The second aspect is where we are looking at drugs repurposing, meaning all the well-known drugs for various other purposes, leprosy drugs or anti-malaria drugs, are being thought as a potential antiviral drugs which could be useful. So institutions like IICT at Hyderabad and Central Drug Research Institute in Lucknow and a few others, we are doing that and helping out government in terms of which are those drugs which you can use. And there is an institution called Triple in Jammu, which is coordinating Ayush related herbal products, which is being taken for clinical trials. So those are undergoing clinical trials, and if that happens, we will have something very, very useful which is coming up.
Oh, we are very happy. We are very happy to know all these planning developments here.
And the other 3 things that is being done by CSR institutions together. In this case, all 38 institutions in India are working together. So one is relating to creating personal protective equipment and masks and ventilators, devices, robotics. So there are many institutions working together, and I'm glad to share here that the design of National Aeronautical Laboratory for overalls for PPEs have been now accepted. Almost 30,000 units are being manufactured now every day. Earlier we had an issue. Ventilators are now being manufactured indigenously using our technology. And I'm not naming masks because that's something which is very common. Everyone.
Yeah, this is small.
And the fourth one where significant work is happening is on diagnostic related supply chain. So if I have some material which is available in different parts of the country, but the other side doesn't know that it's available. So on that we have created a platform. It's called Arogya Path that got launched just last week, where anyone who needs any drug related thing, PPE related thing, instrument related things, that's the demand can be created and the suppliers can come on the platform. So that's also has been very done recently. From NIRI side, we have a testing laboratory which we are doing at Nagpur, which are hub in this Vidarbha region, and we are also working on some very unique disinfectant and those are for personal protective related equipment. So that's where we are right now.
So lots of preparedness against the disaster that's going on, and I'm sure the listeners and all of us should be very happy that the preparedness of a government through CSR laboratories, all of them, and particularly NEERI, is doing very well, and we should be very hopeful. All of you must be knowing that the app developed by NEERI is wonderful in collaboration with the health department of the government, so giving the instant data. So then excellent. Thanos, are you there? So how will you look
Yes,
at
here, of course.
yeah. So how do you look at the US has suffered the most advanced country where we are seeking the guidelines from this USA, everything that right from medicines to infrastructures and all that. But then unfortunately, US is becoming the most suffered. That's very shocking to the entire world. How do you look at this?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's actually a big concern at the moment in the States. At the university level, we haven't actually made any decision on the opening of the fall. Most likely, we will be doing actually online classes for another year. At the federal level, there is no actually a clear guideline or a description on what should be done. Also, there is actually a big conflict between actually the administration and the specialist of the field. For example, Dr. Fauci, who's actually an expert in this field, has actually found many obstacles because of the current administration. So that all this together is a very big concern for the country. However, we hope also for the best. When the discussion goes to the investments, because obviously, now the economies are resetting. So, and you can see, for example, that the states have already released about $2 trillion aid for the country. The Europeans followed about the same amount, and the Chinese. So now I think it's actually a very good time for us to see what should be done for the future. Strategically speaking, I'm not really convinced that the states have made the right decisions with regard to the investments, considering also that most of this federal aid is destined for the old businesses of America, like the fossil fuel sector, shale gas, etc. The Chinese, I would say that it's actually half-half. 50% of their investment will go to the fossil fuel sector as attenuated. Another 50% most likely will go to sustainable development. Whereas the Europeans have put all their efforts and all their emphasis only on advanced technologies and on sustainable development. So I think that in the next 5 to 10 years' time, we may see actually countries being from developed in terms of infrastructure going to the developing nations in terms of infrastructure. When, for example, the Europeans are investing in high-speed trains, whereas the Americans have literally nothing at the moment. So in the next 5 to 10 years' time, we may see actually few changes in this field. But again, this is actually my humble and my personal opinion, obviously.
Yeah, I would have very much like to ask you more questions on the waste management further, but then you are being a university professor. Most of our registered participants are coming from academic. We are academicians here. You are academic. How does Columbia University is looking? This is a little off questions from the environment management. Let's come to the public and students' environment, the university environment, and the health and public health or students' health. How have you planned to cope up the academics and the examination as of now?
Yeah, so actually, all the Ivy Leagues and the American universities were very proactive with regard to the outbreak. So, we had the lockdown in the beginning of March, even well before the federal announced a lockdown for the country. So, on the 3rd of March, the university shut down, and we actually transitioned to online classes, courses, and exams. However, as I mentioned earlier, now we're actually designing and discussing what should be done for the future, for the fall and the spring semester. At the moment, we're considering actually a hybrid model where we will be hosting both in-class and online classes. The main challenge that we do have also in the States is has to do with the visas of the students, because now have admitted actually many students that were expecting them to come sometime in September. However, because of the visa issues, we may have to postpone or even skip actually one semester. So now actually we're having actually discussions every week. Hopefully we're gonna come to a decision according to the Dean's office by the 10th of July.
Oh, I see.
And the main challenge that we do have at the moment associates with the Chinese students, where there is actually a rule where the Chinese actually cannot actually get a certificate of their American degree unless they have an F1 visa and they're actually physically present in the States.
Oh,
So
that's great information.
This actually creates actually a huge problem and obstacle with regard to our decision. And because most of the Chinese actually will not actually come until I would say March or April, or until actually a vaccine is found.
Well, I'm sure that many of our participants would be, they really got some guidelines, some information on the process more from you, because we are the student and academic community is very much confused. We do not know the way ahead. We're all confused, or we are seeing this as a stumbling block. We don't know what the next tomorrow or the next week's planning or this month's planning coming for the Indian academics, including online teaching is fine, but examinations will really stumbling block we have seen in the COVID. So we'll have to really, we are looking really the way ahead, how to proceed and the solutions for this. So thank you for that input. Because of paucity of time, we can't go in more discussions. Coming
Of
back
course,
to
Professor, so what actually I will keep you updated about our possible solution.
Please,
And if
please.
you want actually, you can actually have another discussion or at a later time.
We can have that for academician special discussion coordinated with you, the US University, Columbia, and maybe MIT, Stanford. Let us know if we can seek some guidelines. Yeah.
We will definitely do so as long as we have actually a solution. As I mentioned, most likely we will have a solution by the 10th of July. So I will definitely keep you updated about that.
That's great. That's great. Coming back to Dr. Philip, carbon neutrality is a great issue, but in waste management, you are very patent circular economy, 3 R's, reuse, recycle. How do you look into this? Because this is being handled, Dr. Philip, this is being handled by the rag pickers or the waste collectors. And these are the materials which will have the maximum contaminations coming from anywhere, streets, from home to the streets. How do you look at the waste management post-COVID? Shall we be free to handle all this waste that is generated, municipal solid waste and any other waste, the risk factors? Then how do you go ahead with the waste management?
First of all, Dr. Saran, I would like to make this statement. In looking at adaptation programs, we must collectively commend the rag pickers, as you call them, or scavengers, as some others call them. They have been at the forefront of this India environmental protocol. And one of the things that I do as I move around India is to ask you guys to call them environmental engineers. Because had it not been for these individuals, you see, because they're on the landfills, they need dignity. If you want to sort of change the mindsets of individuals, if you're going to implement new protocols that would actually eliminate landfills, do abate and clean up the landfills, you have to look at them in a way in which you can take them and retrain them. So the first thing that you do is that you need to let these people recognize and appreciate them for what they have done so far. They have given their life. We found that life expectancy for dirt sector of the community, it's about 40-something years. We find that the life expected, their family destruction that takes place, because there are some organizations you find on the ground who literally take their kids and board them and house them And so many times kids grow up while their families are on the landfills, seeking a livelihood. They are away from there. Some of them live actually on the landfill. So I plead and ask that in a first stage that we actually look at that. The other thing that as I was mentioning before, is that if you have to get the entire society, as the Supreme Court has said, you have to embark on a very aggressive community and public education program. And we found that in our R&D program, in our experiment, it works. We have households that are actually recycling, actually in 9, sometimes 11 different categories. We have actually implemented situations inside of these households where they're using biocompost and vermicompostings inside of their homes. We have implemented situations whereby inside of the societies, we have made them zero waste societies, where they even also adapted doing some tree plantations. They feel very excited. They feel very excited to get involved. You have to engage with them, and you have to continually. I think what makes the difference with what we have been doing, we recognize sustainability. How do you sustain? Is that you have to you can't just go and take a system there to the individuals and you step back. You have to constantly engage with them. You have to develop a team that will help them also to sort of constantly look and see if their systems are working, if their systems are not working. We have about a 98% success rate. The 2% failure, which is good also, is because of the management structure of some of the societies. The individuals are not able, which is understandable. It helps us also to do otherwise. The other important thing too is that you should not any longer view the disposal, the abatement, and the cleaning up of these landfills and these wastes as it is traditionally being done. Many times people treat garbage like garbage. So the katra or the garbage reacts to you the way that you treat it. You have to scientifically, what we have discovered, they do what is called bio-mining. You have to engage in a process is what we call phytoremediation, bio-mining engineering. What that means is that given this pandemic also here, all of the biological waste and the medical waste, both from households and from medical care facilities, will eventually end up in these landfills or end up. So scientifically, the landfill already has its own issues with vectors and viruses and things like that. They do. But then compound now when you add this there must be a specialized scientific protocol that must be implemented. It's almost as if you have to go, when we have done this around the world, we literally have our personnel wearing hazmat suits. We have labs.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Sorry to intervene. Dr. Thanos can have short input on this issue, where he have been asking from some standard system development. Let us have his opinion also. And you mentioned rightly the bioremediations, like where the needy have expertise. If Thanos and Rakesh can give a small input, so people take up the guidelines from this, in addition to what you have said about landfills and all. Yeah. Dr. Thanos.
Yes, so as I mentioned also briefly in my presentation, I mean, at the moment, and with regard to the outbreak, I mean, from our view at least, the only prominent technology is waste to energy. It's actually to thermally treat the materials in order to distract all the pathogens and the hazardous components that are included in there. But even so, I mean, even if you combust the materials for the production of energy, you will have to deal actually with a small amount of residues, down to about 20 per weight %, which is actually typically the bottom and the fly ash, which eventually will end up in a landfill.
Dr. Rakesh,
I would like to add something.
You'll be concluding this question, Thomas, but let me see if Rakesh has something. You'll be concluding this question, yeah. Rakesh? Dr. Rakesh Kumar? Is he there around? No. So you please go ahead.
Yeah.
And also, if I may add,
Sorry, he's there.
if I may add something, also Dr. Philip is right. Actually, biomining is actually a very important technique, and with regard also to what has happened in our world, where at the moment most of our materials ends up in landfills. According to a recent study by the International Solid and Waste Association, we have about 2 billion tons of wastes that are being produced yearly, and out of this, roughly speaking, 1.6 ends up in landfills. And most of this ends up actually in open dumps. So biomining or landfill mining also is a good technique to recover few of these lost resources that have ended up in these sites. However, again, yes.
Yeah, I do agree with you that biomining, but the emphasis is on what I call phytoremediation, and I call it the biomining engineering. That it's a special protocol that must be implemented. You also mentioned waste to energy, and what we have done working with a number of international players. Whether it's NASA or whomever, and then also I mentioned specifically the guidance what Dr. Rakesh Kumar gave us. We looked at the old iron steel blast furnace, and we repositioned that blast furnace using regenerative burners, right? Because India's waste in of itself, the corrosivity, the acidity, the flammability, these things that you had to take into account. Dr. Tarnos, that there is a requirement that when you're going from flue gas to syngas, there must be a constant burn rate existing there. Mm-hmm. So we we got together with all these technology providers and developed a specialized, and what we call it a cataclysmic gasifier. We have to reposition these blast furnaces. India's waste, because of the calorific value and moisture content, has to be specially treated, especially legacy waste that has been sitting there for all this time. So, and all of the systems in terms of how you approach the waste itself there. And so this is what some of the things that we have done. So in summary, special attention needs to be played when we're talking about abatement and cleaning up of landfills in India, especially with the legacy waste. You cannot take what is happening in Europe and bring it in India. You can't take what is happening in South Korea and bring it in India. You have to develop specialized technologies to deal with specifically the culture in of itself, the way the Indians, the way they eat, the food that goes into the landfill in of itself, the acidity, the corrosivity, the flammability, the burn, all these things must be studied and had to be studied, and we spend an inordinate amount of time studying these things in order to come up with the right technological protocol for processing India's waste. I think that yes, indeed, India is at the forefront. Do you know the extensive amount of what we call biogas that can be had from that waste that is sitting there, right? You can take the waste, you speak about the fly ash and the bottom ash, right? We developed what is called a zero waste, zero carbon protocol to take into account that where the waste is actually melted and you get a vitrified glass or slag at the end of it, something that you would have gotten if you had, we have taken a quantum leap beyond pyrolysis and beyond the traditional things. You have to do that. Beyond plasma, we have taken quantum leap, and to move the process beyond that. Until you sort of put the time in and study this COVID-19 coronavirus period also, we have many of our conferences via Zoom, and it's amazing to see how all the technology providers get together and excited about it.
Okay, I totally agree with you. It's actually really key to assess, each case by case and be actually in a very good position to identify the best available techniques with regard actually to the composition of the waste, to what is included in there, the calorific value, and the several other characteristics. But when the discussion goes to the technology, at the moment, we only have actually few specific technologies that have been deployed and deployed in communities. Not magical thinking, or I assume this and that, or I develop something in the laboratory. We're talking about deployment. And in terms of deployment, the only proven technology, when the discussion goes to the beneficial uses of the waste materials, is actually combustion, waste to energy based combustion. You mentioned about plasma. The only country that uses plasma for the vitrification of residues is Japan. However, the capital investment, and this is also very, very important because it's not only the environment, it's also the cost for the society. Plasma, it's actually a very, very expensive technology. And even actually in Japan, I mean, the cost was actually 3 to 4 times higher as compared actually to the conventional combustion. Then also you mentioned about gasification. I will just give you one example. In England, a few years ago, a great economy, great engineers, two companies, two champions in the field, you know also the companies, two champions in the field tried to build a plasma gasification plant.
Westinghouse
and Air Products.
Yes.
It was a JV.
The two T's value.
Exactly. So after 5 years of trying to build these plants, they conclude that guys, we cannot do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I'm very skeptical on these new technologies or these new innovations to provide a solution. Because as I mentioned, what we need is to assess the case, for example, what is happening in Mumbai, etc., specifically with these specific 3 streams, and then take into consideration what has been deployed out there. And then we can have actually a pragmatic solution. Because you know something, from my view, our world is full of magical thinkers. People think we can actually do anything overnight and everything overnight. No.
Yeah, that's a key point, Dr. Thanos. That's a key point that you've made there.
Now the time.
You find in India, there are lots of thinkers, but no practicals implementing policies. So you find when individuals prepare detailed project reports, they do it from desk review, not from actual practical experience. And it's very difficult to get technology partners to actually, with experience, as you've mentioned, whether they're in Japan, whether it's in Singapore, whether it's in Europe, to come together based on what they have been using. How do we coalesce that together? And that's what the whole process. You have to have what is called technology that has been proven and that can be integrated.
Absolutely. And with regard to the definition, in order for technology to be proven or at least mature, you need actually the technology to operate for at least 90% of the time. That means about over 8,000 hours in a year continuously. Because I have personally assessed many of these fancy and advanced technologies, and I have never actually seen one new technology being operated for a long time. So that's why you have to be very, very careful.
That's a great input from both of you. Coming to the final question to Ajay.
We're passionate about this now.
Our student children are working after the timing because there is no lunch on the webinar, you know. So no lunch time. They have their home lunch time. Everybody stranded at home. And I'm sure that some of you must be on the way. But we'll wind up in another 5 minutes after note of thanks. But before that, Ajay Chatterjee has brought up very important issues. So far, we're thinking of ballast water problem as far as ports and ships are concerned. But the ship environment, I put in the question yesterday that 4 people they disembarked the ship and 4 of them were all positive. Where do they get infections and then they come with the infection? Then he explained to me this is a cross-border, cross-country handling a material, getting down at the port, getting material from different country, landing in our country. But as I used to see in the Colaba, all these seafarers, the cadets, they would walk into freely the markets of the city. You know, now there is another issue. Now, if pandemic infections are like this coming particularly from other country, cross country, I think there will be extremely good norms, stricter norms you have to establish, because you have to be alert for any kind of pandemic, not only corona. So the new norms, he rightly mentioned changing of the crew, is very important input he has given and many issues he handled. But can you have the final comment, short comment, Ajay, that how the society should look at these three cadres?
Yes, thank you, Captain. Sorry, Dr. Sawant, bringing this very important aspect. As I said earlier, seafarers, when they are at sea, continuous for long sailings, weeks and months, sometimes without seeing land. And when they see land, everybody wants to go ashore, It's for rest, recreation, or maybe just simple purchase, buying things, beer, meeting people, whatever. Now I understand some shipping management companies and shipping companies have issued SOPs, standard operating procedures to take care. There is no regulation as such as I'm aware of. There is no regulation that you cannot go ashore. But then they have the company for the safety of the crew. The master has to be sure that his crew not get infected to the extent possible. It cannot be 100% sure. So I have some friends or friends at sea, and I ask them, he said, I've not stepped out of the ship for the last 2 months. So the company is providing full access to internet. Earlier it was restricted so that they can make calls to their homes, mobile acceptability, more physical activity like gym, gym facilities, and a lot of other entertainment like movies, videos, and all that. And most importantly, human being has to talk. It is known as relatives and friends. It's for the day. If he gets about 5 minutes to talk to his family, that's a big deal. He can speak from anywhere in the ocean, his family. So for the time being, seafarers are very important. And the cases that you heard are true. There have been cases that they found, and as the doctors say, some of you can be walking around asymptomatic. You don't know you have it. So how will the poor seafarer know? You don't even have a doctor on board. Suddenly comes ashore and they find that you got a fracture and compulsory the test, whether it was temperature or not. And then they find that maybe you need the virus. So I was reading about this somewhere. I'm a doctor, I'm a manager, I can't say for sure. But they said that even if you get the virus inside you, it is a very flimsy cell, it breaks. That corona, it breaks into pieces. And in your body, it may be just small piece in one part of the body when the sample is taken, and the rest of it is neutralized by the antibodies. So because of that, you are tested negative. You are tested positive. Actually, nothing is wrong with you. Your system is actually fighting the virus. Nevertheless, one can't take risk, so they are put in quarantine for 14 days. So either side, before he comes ashore, after he comes ashore, before he goes home, but there are very few cases because on a ship, if somebody is sick, he's immediately taken off. He's put in quarantine and he's taken off. So these 4 cases that we've heard is, I'm sure, if they have not been infected by family or who are coming ashore on the ship, Otherwise, chances are they're not hearing anything that ships. The first case in Japan that happened, the passenger liner, 180 passengers were infected. 80 persons were infected. That's the first time Japan reported COVID-19. I think in early March. It was from a passenger ship. The whole ship was quarantined for nearly 2 months in Japanese waters. Till everybody was cured and then they went home. So ships are, as I said, easy to regulate. There is one space, just one area, one floating body. So you can keep control over it. Of course, you have to have very, very strict procedures, standing operating procedures.
Thank you for these great inputs. Now, Sandeep, Sonal, Nitin, it is back to you.
Yes, sir.
Before you thank, I must thank all the resource persons, the great input. with a small interruption in between, but it has gone so well, and I congratulate you all first. Now you
Thank you,
thank the
sir.
others and wind it up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I would just like to invite Dr. Deepa from Viva College, Vice Principal, to propose a vote of thanks.
Hello, I am audible.
Yes, Deepa, you are very much audible. Good to see you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. And yes, it's good to be a part of this particular webinar, and I was really very happy to be associated with it. So, not taking too much of time, I would do the necessary thing, that is extend thanks to everybody. It is my pleasure to extend vote of thanks on this important day wherein we are celebrating the Golden Jubilee year of Socleen. And I guess this international webinar can be the best thing that can be done to celebrate this Golden Jubilee year. So, yeah, I mean, so international webinar, and then, you know, this where we have got a lot of disconnect, physical disconnect from people. This technological connection should always be there if and when possible. So it was a good medium for all of us to get connected. I would like to extend my thanks, sincerest thanks, to Dr. A.D. Sawant sir, who's president of Socleen. His belief in doing things for environment, for the society, for humankind, for mankind, for every living organism in this present on this earth is something that cannot be explained. His enthusiasm is far beyond all of us, the youngsters. So, sincerest thanks to Dr. A.D. Sawant, Mr. Avkash Kumar, who is secretary of Socleen, the young budding talent who's been getting groomed under Dr. A.D. Sawant to do good things. I would like to extend my thanks to Santosh Nivati sir also, who is the treasurer of Socleen, Mr. Sandeep Taide, who is the managing committee member of Socleen. Thanks cannot be completed if I do not extend my sincere gratitude to the management of DG Ruparel College, who get associated with Socleen in hosting this particular webinar. So my sincerest thanks to the management of DG Ruparel College, Dr. Tushar Desai, who is principal of DG Ruparel College. And I don't think so that the webinar is complete if I don't extend my thanks to the eminent and renowned speakers who devoted their time right from morning with all those technological impairments, their patience to wait enough till the problems get solved. So I would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Rakesh Kumar, who is the director of NEDI, Professor Dr. Athanasios Bourtsalas, who is from Department of Earth and Environmental Engineering, Columbia University, USA, Ambassador Dr. Philip Mozart Thomas, whose insight and whose enthusiasm was right from the mock testing that we did. So his enthusiasm is something that we all should be learning from. Thanks extended to Mr. G.T. Thompson also, who is a former Chief Secretary at Kerala. He took out time from his busy schedule and he waited till his turn came, and he delivered a really insightful session. Thanks is due to Mr. Ajay Chatterjee also, who is consultant and an IMSAS auditor, International Maritime Organization in London, UK. And I would like to extend thanks to Mr. Nitin Vasnik, who was the person who could arrange all these things and who was calm throughout the session and did not get panicked. So thanks to him also for providing us with the technological support as and when required. Thanks is due to Dr. Sonal Tawre, the host of this particular session. Thanks to Pratnesh Agre sir, who was also out of his busy schedule could manage to be a part of this particular session and as a part of core committee of Socleen. And I don't think so. This program can be concluded without thanking all the participants and all the other dignitaries who could make it possible, who have waited till this time post lunch also to be a part of this particular session. And I in the end thank myself also, so that everybody is part of the team, and we will meet again with many more programs. And as Sawant sir rightly said, that it's been a long journey of Socleen, and Socleen needs to actually actively be involved in doing many more such things in future, and we promise you that we'll be getting back with many more activities. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sonal ma'am.
Thank you, Deepa ma'am, for all that wonderful thank yous to all of us who are involved in organizing this webinar. And now I think we are towards the end of the session. There were many questions which were coming up, but due to lack of time, we couldn't take those. Nevertheless, we would pose these questions to our panelists in due course, and whatever answers we could get, we can forward it to the persons who are asking the questions. So thank you once again. Thank you all. And our source of inspiration, Dr. A.D. Sawant, it's all due to you that we could organize this webinar and be a part of it at such a great level. Thank you. Thank you once again. Thanks.
Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thanos, thank you, Thanos, Philip, and
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Thanos will speak.
We'll speak soon.
Indeed. Yes, very soon, very soon. Thank you, sir. Good. My regards there to the faculty. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.